Session underway. And we'll say good evening to everybody and welcome to Mishnah Mastery. We are going to be, pardon me? Thank you. Could you remind us of the name, please? Shmayahu ben Yaakov HaKohen. May this learning be as an elevation for his soul. And if there are other people that we want to be learning for as well, by all means, chime in with their names. And let's learn. And Avraham Chaim ben Eliezer. Le'ilui Nishmaso. Okie doke. We are on chapter 5 of the Mishnah in Berachot. And we are talking now about how one should approach going into praying their tefillah, their Shemona Esrei. And what we're going to see is that if you're in the middle of your Shemona Esrei, even if you're afraid for your life, you shouldn't let yourself be disturbed. And in fact, we should try and get rid of anything that might distract us or deter us from davening before continuing to daven. So let's have a look at Mishnah Aleph in chapter 5. A person should only stand to pray, to get up to pray, if they are in a mindset of koved rosh. Translates it on the screen as a reverent state of mind. Koved rosh, literally, I guess you could translate it as like a heavy head. But what we're saying is one has to take it seriously when we are stepping up to pray. Chasidim harishonim. This is brilliant. The early pious ones. Hayu shohim sha'achas umispalalim. They would wait for an hour before they would daven. Why? In order that they could set their hearts in the right zone and get their thoughts in place to be able to pray to Hashem. La makom, interesting, we call it the makom, just like hamakom yinachem etchem, that the place, the destination for all of our tefillahs is also a name for Hashem. Afilu hamelech shoel bishlomo, even if the king himself, or if Queen Elizabeth herself, is inquiring after your welfare and greeting you, lo yishiveni, you should not interrupt, because you are talking to the King of Kings himself. Va'afilu nachash karuch ala kevo, even if you have a snake wrapped around your heel, lo yafsik, you should not interrupt. Of course, we do go on to say that if your life is in danger at any point, then one would take the appropriate steps, literally and figuratively, to make sure that they are not in any danger. On to Mishnah Base, the second Mishnah of the Perek. Mazkirin gavuros geshamim b'tchias hamesim. When it comes to the additions and supplications and additional things that we add into our Amida, it goes like this. Mazkirin gavuros geshamim b'tchias hamesim. We add in the prayer of bringing rain in the blessing for resurrection of the dead, which is the opening passage of our Shemona Esrei, where we say Mashiv Haruach Umarid Hagashem, V'sho'alin Hagashamim V'pirkas Hashanim, and we ask for rain, which we do with V'sein Tal Umatar Livracha. So we do that in the bracha of Barich Aleinu, the bracha asking for rain. V'havdalah b'choinen adas, and when we are praying Saturday night, and we've got the words of Havdalah to include in our Shemona Esrei, we slip that in to Chonen Hadas. This is not necessarily all new to us. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Omra Bracha Reviis Bifnei Atzma. Rabbi Akiva says that you add a bracha, and on Motzei Shabbat you would as well. So when it comes to asking for rain in Birkat Hashanim, in Barech Aleinu, and when it comes to Havdalah in Chonen Hadat, according to Rabbi Akiva, you would make a separate bracha. According to Rabbi Eliezer Omer, B'hoda'ah, you actually include these, I think both these additions into the bracha of Modim. into the bracha of thanksgiving. So I think we can, for those of us who are familiar enough with our daily prayer rituals, will know that we we pray according to the first position in our Mishnah. Okie dokie. Let's move on to Mishnah Gimel. What does Mishnah Gimel have to say for itself? We're going to be introduced to the mitzvah of Shiluach Hakam. Ha! Never thought I'd have to talk about this again. So, Shiluach Hakam, sending away the mother bird in order to take the eggs. So, we're not supposed to take the mother and the eggs at the same time. But we are talking here about the mitzvah itself. And here's how it goes. Ha'omer al kan tzipor yagiu rachamecha. One who says, are we talking about in the middle of our Shmona Esrei? If we include these words, that on a bird's nest may your mercy be extended, right? Va'al tov yizacher shemecha, and for good may your name be blessed. Or a person says modim modim, or a person says the words modim twice, which makes it sound like you are accepting upon yourself two gods to be thankful for. Meshatkin oso, you are supposed to silence a person who has done this. These are inappropriate things to be adding in, as it were, because it's implying that, well, yeah, fine, on birds he's merciful, but on people he's not merciful, and things like that. So the implications of adding these phrases in are inappropriate and therefore should be discouraged. A person who steps up or steps down, really, to lead the service, they make a mistake while they do it, then we should actually withdraw that individual from being the shliach tzibur, from being the chazan, and we should put someone else instead of them. V'lo yehei sarvan ba'osa sha'ah. And if you are called upon, if you are the one that is called upon to replace the chazan, who is, I guess, too flustered or too distracted to be able to find the right place and to get himself back on track, or maybe he's said a prayer that he's not too familiar with, that's, I'm trying to think if I've actually seen that myself or not, but someone gets up to lead a service on Shabbat because they have a yort site and they didn't realize that it's completely different to a weekday Mara, for example, something like that, or Kabbalat Shabbat, whatever it might be. So, let's say they're getting just too flustered and they don't know what they're doing. So we have to put someone else in their place. So ordinarily, if you are asked to lead a service, then there is an accepted practice that you shouldn't jump at the chance to be the chazan, because of course you have the weight of the community on your shoulders when you are leading prayers, and it's not such a straightforward and easy thing to just get up and do. So ordinarily you might, the Gemara talks about how at first you should refuse the first request, so Richard or David, whoever it is, comes up to you and says, will you lead the service? So at first you should kind of politely decline. The second time you should kind of if they come back to you and say, no, we really need you to lead it, so then we're supposed to have this attitude of I can if you really want me to, but then if they come back and ask you a third time, then you're supposed to accept the invitation and take the position as the shliach tzibur for that service. But in this instance, if you're withdrawing someone mid-flow and you have to get someone else in, then we can't go through the courtesies that we might otherwise go through, and we're supposed to get in and get started and pick up from where we're supposed to be. So v'lo yehei sarvan, we're not supposed to be shy, but osa sha'ah, we're not supposed to reject the invitation. You're supposed to go straight up. So nowadays we don't necessarily act in a way, certainly not in a way that would embarrass or offend someone. But as I said, if it's a situation where the person literally does not know what it is that they're supposed to be leading, and they're not in a position to be able to lead the service, or perhaps a guy gets up and he's completely shikha, and it's really inappropriate that they should be leading the service, or even in an instance, I don't know, where I don't know what we do actually in this kind of situation, but during a time when a mourner perhaps shouldn't be leading a service because it's Rosh Chodesh or a day when we don't say Tachanan. I wonder if over there we would pull someone down if they'd already started. I'm not sure if we do though, because that could be embarrassing. But what we're talking about over here is a situation which might be more frequent at the time in the Mishnah than it would be now. But in a situation where you have to withdraw the person from leading the service, whoever steps up as the successor has to just get in there and get started. Does that make sense? Okay, we can pick it up after with pleasure. Minayin hu maschil. Where should this substitute shliach tzibur pick it up from? So the Gemara Mishnah answers mitchilas habracha sheta'aba. He should pick it up from the bracha where the person made the mistake. So if he was in the middle of Barech Aleinu and whatever happened, and the person had to step in, then you would pick it up from Barech Aleinu. Okay, Mishnah Dalet. I mean, what we see from here really is how important the position of Shliach Tzibur is, and not one to just take lightly. So Mishnah Dalet continues with more halachot regarding a Shliach Tzibur, where we're going to see that one may not add anything that has additional connotations, which would not be acceptable to add in by their own discretion. So let's have a look. Ha'ova lifnei hateva, person who gets up to daven as the leader of the community. Lo yaneh achar hakohanim, amen. He should not say amen when the kohanim are getting up to duchen, right? To say birkat kohanim, mipnei hateref, because he might get confused and lose his place. Vim ein sham kohen elahu. If he is leading the service and he is a kohen, and there is nobody else available to duchen. Sorry, I think the implication is at the beginning of this Mishnah that he is a kohen. Let's just see if I can figure that out. No, perhaps not. But if he is the only kohen, v'in ein sham kohen elahu, if he is the only kohen in play, lo yisait kapav, then he is not supposed to actually duchen, because he can't afford to lose his place as the leader of the community. But if he is fluent enough that he is so sure that he can lead the service and duchen and get everything right without losing his concentration, without losing his place, then it would be acceptable practice for him to be able to lead, or to be able to do the duchening and to lead at the same time. So that is the halacha in Mishnah Daled. We move on to Mishnah Hey, the final Mishnah in our Perek, in our chapter 5. Other ideas about the Shliach Tzibur. Let's have a look. Hamispalel v'ta'a siman ralo. If a person is praying and words come out wrong, or he gets confused, or he makes a mistake, whatever it is, according to the position in the Mishnah, it's a bad sign. Siman ralo. I guess one has to assume here that we're really talking about someone who is really trying hard to concentrate. They're following the words and everything like that, and nonetheless they're still making mistakes where otherwise they would have got these things right. So it's a siman ra. It is a bad sign. Vim shliach tzibur hu siman ra l'sholchav. And if he is the leader of the tefillah, of the community, then not only is it a bad sign, it's a bad sign for everybody, because everybody in the community has, effectively the same channel open as he does, and he is representing everyone. And so if he makes, if he is gobbling up his words, or if he is making mistakes, or whatever it might be, then it could be a siman ra for the whole community. And again, we have to understand, when we are the leader of a service, we have got the entire community resting on our shoulders. And that's not just the maybe 10 people that might show up midweek, but we are praying on behalf of the entire community, those who are present and those who are not. One has to be thoughtful and considerate and careful with this august responsibility. Is august the right word? Probably not, says Martin. Austere, I don't know. But nonetheless, it is a significant position that a shliach tzibur is being placed in. So it can be a bad sign. Amru alav al Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. It was said about Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, Shahaya mispalel al cholim, that he was praying, or that he would pray for sick people. And as he would finish his prayer, he would say, "Va'omer zechai v'zemeis." This one's going to live, and this one's going to die. Amru lo minayin ata yodea. How could you know such a thing just from praying? Have you got some kind of connection with God upstairs that you're receiving a text back straight away? This one's going to live, this one's going to die. How could you know? Amar lahem im shigura tfilasi b'fi yodea ani shehu mekubal. If the words come naturally to me and fluently to me, then I know that the tefillah is going to be accepted. V'im lav yodea ani shehu metoraf. But if not, then I also know that Hashem is just going to tear up this tefillah, and it's not going to be effective for the healing of the person that we're praying for. Now, granted, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa is of a far different caliber and far different level to certainly myself. I can't speak for all of you, but there is a concept, at least for him, that he was on such a level and such a connection with Hashem that he could tell from the way in which he was approaching his prayer whether it was sincere enough, whether it was correct enough, whether it had the appropriate things in place to be a worthy prayer of being listened to. Mazel tov, one and all, on completing chapter 5 of Masechet Berachot. And we move into chapter 6, unless we have some questions that need to be shared. Righty then. Let's move on to chapter 6. Well, it's called Berachot, and now we're finally going to talk about some Berachot. Look at that, 6 chapters in, and we finally get started. So we're moving on from Shemona Esrei to discuss Berachot, blessings on different types of food. And we're actually talking about a topic called Birkat HaNehenin, which are brachas for things that we derive benefit from. Food is an example of something that we derive benefit from. So we are going to start in Mishnah Aleph with the brachot that we say before we eat. So let's take a little look. Ketzad mevarchin al peiros. How should one say their brachos over fruits, over produce? Let's take a look. Al peiros ha'ilan omer borei pri ha'etz. On fruits of trees, then we say borei pri ha'etz. We bless the one who creates the fruits of the trees. There is an exception, says the Mishnah. Chutz min hayayin. Wine is different. By the way, just to understand what peiros ha'ilan means, we're talking about, when we talk about fruits from the tree, we're talking about fruits that if you were to take them off their source, so if you were, for example, to take an apple off the tree, there could be another apple that would grow in its place, or there could be another orange that grows in its place. Okay, so peiros ha'ilan refers to fruits that when you detach them from their source, another one can grow in its place. That differs from, say, vegetables and things which grow in the ground, which don't have the option of renewal from their original source, and you would have to plant new ones to be able to grow new ones. So that's kind of, broadly speaking, the distinction between these things. Okay, so al peiros ha'ilan omer borei pri ha'etz. We say the one who creates the fruits of the trees, chutz min hayayin, except for wine. She'al hayayin omer. Anybody? Don't know Rush at once. Borei pri hagafen. We bless the one who creates the fruits of the vines. And that's because wine is special. And therefore it gets a different bracha to fruits of the tree. V'al peiros ha'aretz. What about fruits of the land? Omer borei pri ha'adama. We say, blessed be he, the one who creates the fruits of the ground. Chutz min hapas, with the exception of bread. She'al hapas, on bread we say, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We bless the one who brings out the bread from the earth, who brings forth the bread from the earth. Again, it's special and it has its own bracha. It's a key part. It's the main part of our sustenance, and so it deserves its own unique bracha. V'yal hayirakos omer borei peri ha'adama. On leafy vegetables, one says borei peri ha'adama. Rabbi Yehuda differs in this regard. Rabbi Yehuda omer borei mine deshaim. Rabbi Yehuda in a lot of these cases is always trying to pinpoint and be as accurate as possible with the different brachas that he makes. So he makes a distinction between things that grow in the ground and herby, leafy vegetables and sprouts and whatever. And so for those, he would pinpoint a more precise wording of the bracha, and he would say, Borei minei dishaim. He who creates the different species of herbs. We don't say that bracha. We say Borei peri ha'adama on leafy vegetables. But it's interesting nonetheless to see a difference of opinion. We move on to... Pardon? We do have a tradition to say ha'adama for tomatoes, even though we always call them fruits. I'm not quite sure who would have made the decision at which point in history, but we do say Borei peri ha'adama on tomatoes. Was that another question? No? Alrighty then. We move on to Mishnah base. Mishnah 2. Berach al peiros ha'ilan borei peri ha'adama yatsa. Now, what we're tackling with over here is as follows. All right, we've identified that different things have got different brachot. But what if you make a bracha where the wording really does apply to the thing that you've made the blessing on? It's just that it was the wrong bracha to make. So what should you do? So Berach al peiros ha'ilan. If you make a borei peri ha'adama on fruit, tree fruit, well, in theory, tree fruit does also grow from the ground. So you've made a bracha. It was the wrong bracha, but it did apply, and it can attach itself to the thing that you have made the bracha on. And so the Mishnah says, Yatsa, you have fulfilled the obligation of saying a bracha before you have eaten something. Even though it was the wrong text, nonetheless, it does fit and it does suit the thing that you're trying to eat. V'al peiros ha'aretz borei peri ha'etz lo yatsa. But the other way around doesn't work. If you make borei peri ha'etz on a cucumber, that doesn't work because cucumbers do not grow from trees. They grow in the ground. They do not grow from trees. Trees also grow in the ground, and that's why it can apply. But cucumbers, as an example, do not grow on trees. Last time I checked, and so you would not be able to. You would need to go back and make another bracha that is the correct bracha on what you are trying to eat. So the Mishnah says, "Al kulam im amar shehakol nihiyeh bidvaro yatsa." But on all of these instances, if you were to say the bracha of shehakol, right, the bracha of everything being created by Hashem, everything coming about through His words, shehakol nihiyeh bidvaro, everything exists on account of His words. So if you say that bracha on things that should really have a more specific bracha, like borei peri ha'etz or borei peri ha'adama, you would nonetheless fulfill your obligation. It's not ideal. And in fact, we talk a lot in the Gemara and in Halacha that, we can't just rely on the blanket ability to say shehakol on anything. Oh, I can't remember what the bracha is on bread. Never mind, I can say shehakol. Oh, I can't remember what the bracha is on an apple. Never mind, I can say shehakol. Even though it might fundamentally be right, it's not considered to be appropriate practice, because we are supposed to dignify these foods and fruits, or as my Scottish English teacher used to say, fruits and fruits, and you couldn't really tell the difference. You're supposed to be as specific as you possibly can with the brachot that we say. Mishnah Gimel. Al davar she'en gidula min haaretz omer shahakol. On things that do not grow in the ground, on those things we do say shahakol. That will include, let's think of some examples: fish, meat, eggs, milk, etc., etc., etc. On all of these types of things, we would say shahakol. The Mishnah continues: Al hachometz, on vinegar, wine vinegar, vala novlos, on unripe fruits, vial hagovai, and on grasshoppers, omer shahakol. We would say the bracha of shahakol. Al hechalav, on milk, al hagvina, on cheese, vial habeitzim, and on eggs, omer shahakol. We would say the bracha of shahakol. Rabbi Yehuda omer kol shehu min klala ein mevarchin alav. Rabbi Yehuda says that anything which is of a cursed species, is that how it translates it for you over there? Anything which is cursed, you do not make a bracha on at all. So he would say, of the things that we were mentioning before, when it comes to unripe fruit, for example, that is a bad mistake, that you are taking fruit before it is delicious and ready to eat. Similarly with grasshoppers, because they can bring so much damage, they are also considered cursed in his eyes, and therefore on these things you would not make a bracha on these things, according to Rabbi Yehuda. But the halacha is not like him, and so actually you would make a bracha on these things. Don't make any promises that you can't keep, Martin. You just never know. You just never know. Never say never. All right, Mishnah Dalet. So Mishnah Dalet, for this we have to understand that the produce that comes out of Eretz Yisrael is far more special and unique and important than produce that comes from anywhere else. And so what we're exploring over here is whether they require any special treatment. So here comes the Mishnah. Get yourselves ready. If you are sitting before a banquet of several different foods, of several different varieties, and you are trying to decide what you need to make your bracha on, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Im yesh beinehem min shiva, mavarich halav. If you have got, let's say, apples and pears and oranges, but you've also got fruits that come from Eretz Yisrael, from the 7 species, right? Right, we're familiar with the 7 species of Eretz Yisrael: chitas, ora, gefen, te'ena, rimon, zeit shemen, dvash. So if we are sitting in front of these things, then according to Rabbi Yehuda, you should prioritize and take one of those things to make the bracha on first. So if you've got grapes, which is a species of Eretz Yisrael, doesn't necessarily have to be something that comes from Israel, but it's of a species to which Eretz Yisrael is connected. So let's say you've got grapes and you've got an apple. So which one should you make the bracha on? They both have a borei pri ha'etz. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, you start by saying the bracha on the grapes, because they are a species connected to Eretz Yisrael. The Chachamim say, Mavarich al eze mehen sheyutzeh. The Chachamim say, actually, it is better for you to choose whichever one is more enjoyable and gives you greater pleasure. That is the one that you should make the bracha on. And the way that we paskin, I believe, is actually that the halakha is like the Chachamim, that we make a bracha on the things that are more appealing and more endearing to us. If there isn't anything which is more endearing or more appealing, then we should prioritize the species associated with Eretz Yisrael. The question arises, well, what if you've got grapes and pomegranates, or grapes and figs, or grapes and dates, or dates and figs, or dates and pomegranates, whatever the permutation is. So there is a hierarchy as well for the 7 species from Eretz Yisrael. We don't necessarily have to go into it now, but the way in which the Gemara talks about it is, whatever has closest proximity in the verse to the word eretz is bumped up higher on the list, right? So the words of the verse go eretz, chita, useora, v'gefen, v'te'ena, eretz, zait, shemen, udvash. So anything that is closer in proximity to the word eretz, be it the first eretz or the second eretz, that creates the order from that creates the order of the priorities for saying the bracha over that particular item. I don't know if that makes sense. It does in my mind. So as an example, if you had geffen, if you had grapes, and you had olives, yeah, so they're both close to the word eretz, but grapes is closer to the first eretz than olives, which is closer to the second eretz. So grapes would be first in the list over olives. I am just about hanging on to that myself, so I hope I haven't confused you too greatly. Mishnah Hay. Mishnah Hay introduces the basic principles of making brachot before and after meals. Typically, if a person makes a bracha on bread, then it covers everything that you're going to eat in that meal. So we're going to also be introduced to this concept of making brachot on things that cover other things. So, if you've got two fruits, you don't usually make two borei pri ha'etzis. You pick one and it covers the other one, right? So hamotzi would cover everything. But what we're going to see is it might not include dessert, because not everybody considers dessert to be a part of the meal. But I'm not one of those people. I consider dessert to be one of the most important parts of the meal, possibly the most important part of the meal. However, halachically, there could be grounds to say that dessert is not included with the hamotzi bracha. So the Mishnah is going to define certain rules when a bracha over one food may cover another and when it might not. And it's also going to talk about if we make hamotzi, so do we still need to make a bracha on wine in the meal? Is wine going to be considered covered by our bracha over hamotzi? We know that if we make kiddush on Friday night, Shabbos day, so the bracha on the wine that we make there covers whatever we have during the meal. But is that going to be the same with hamotzi? I don't know. Let's check it out. Mishnah Hey, Rabbi Sai, Berach al hayayin shlifnei hamazon. If you make a bracha on wine before the meal, patar es hayayin shla'achar hamazon. It will cover the wine that might be brought to you after you have started your meal. Berach al parperes shlifnei hamazon. If you make a bracha on I need to find a fancy word for parperes, but parperes are the I guess like the appetizers. They are the falling off my chair there. So parperes are the appetizers that would be brought to people perhaps before the main meal. So if they make the bracha on the parperes shilifnei hamazon before they sit down to their main seuda, patar es parperes shlachar hamazon. They are going to cover the parperes, the I want to say accoutrements as well. I feel like that's a fancy word. They will cover those. Well, how did it translate it there? Oh, appetizers / desserts. But yeah, it means the things that are not associated with the main meal. So it will cover those things. Berach ala pas. If you make a bracha on bread, then patar es parperes. Then it is going to cover all of the things that you eat during your meal. Al parperes. But if you make a bracha on parperes, then lo patar es pas. Then it's not going to cover if you wanted to eat bread. So you would have to make hamotzi if you wanted to have bread as well. Fine. Beis Shammai omrim af lo ma'aseh kedera. If you ate parperes, if you made a bracha on parperes, then it would not cover even a dish that you wanted to eat as part of your meal, that wouldn't even a side dish. It wouldn't be covered by this bracha that you would make on the parperes, and you would have to make a separate bracha. All right, Mishnah Vav. We are plowing through and nearing the end of chapter 6. Are we in the right place, Mr. Screen Master? Yes, we are. Okay. So what we're going to see over here is we need to understand two categories of brachot when it comes to a person being able to make a bracha for someone else. Not everyone can make brachot themselves, and we do have a concept that exists of being able to say a bracha on someone else's behalf so that they can either eat or do whatever it is that the bracha is covering. So the two categories generally are birkat ha-mitzvah, a bracha that we are saying over a mitzvah, and birkat ha-nehenin, which we've mentioned before, which is the brachas over things which we are going to derive pleasure over. So when it comes to mitzvot, when it comes to mitzvahs, so we have a concept called arvut, right? Kol Yisrael arevim zeh bazeh, that all of Israel are arevim. We are responsible for one another. So that concept exists in the context of mitzvahs, in the sense that we are all in this together. And if we are needing to do a mitzvah, then we can also rely on others to help get us over the line as well. So that's why there exists this concept that you can make a bracha for someone else to be able to do a mitzvah, because we're all in it together. So Kiddush, for example, we can say Kiddush as many times as we want. So if there's somebody that's not able to make their own Kiddush, then you can say Kiddush for them, even if you've already done the mitzvah of Kiddush. Now, that's with regards to a mitzvah, right? When it comes to food, now I'm not always obligated to eat something. And therefore, if I have already made a bracha on my food, I can't do that now for anybody else. And if I haven't made the bracha yet, then I can make it for someone else. But if I'm doing that, I have to make sure that I have them in mind and that they are listening and they are concentrating and they are having in mind to listen. So it requires a duality, it requires to work both ways. You have to have in mind to include them in your bracha, and they have to have in mind to be included. To help understand this Mishnah further, when people would sit and eat meals together back in the day, they would only be considered to be eating together if they were sitting down together and reclining, because they used to be, you'd kind of have this kind of like, I don't know what, reception going on, as it were, where people would kind of have appetizers standing around, and then eventually there would come time for the formal part of the meal where everyone would sit down and recline to be able to enjoy their main meal. So that helps us understand a little bit of what Mishnah Vav is going to tell us. So Hayu yoshvin le'achol, if they are sitting down to eat. So yoshvin as opposed to reclining. Okay, so they're just kind of casually sitting. So kol echad ve'echad mevarich le'atzmo. So according to this position in the Mishnah, everybody should be making their own brachot. Hey Seibu, but if they're sitting down to recline, echad mevarich lechulan, then it's considered as if they're all together, and so one person can make a bracha on behalf of everyone. The equivalent nowadays, of course, would be things like Kiddush, things like Hamotzi, where the head of the household typically is the one who says the bracha on the bread, which then gets covered for everybody else in the room. Okay. Mishnah says, Balahem yayin b'toch hamazon. If wine is brought to them in the middle of the meal. So no one had made this bracha before the meal. And even though they're reclining together, what we're going to see is that the Mishnah says, so Balahem yayin b'toch hamazon, so they're sitting together, they might even be reclining. Kol echad ve'echad mevarich le'atzmo. Each person should make their own bracha, because the assumption is that once you're already in the midst of your meal, you're going to be too distracted to pay attention to someone else's bracha, And so the recommendation is that everyone makes their own blessing by themselves. La'achar hamazon, but when it comes to after the meal, then echad mevarich lechulam. So then everyone's a bit more settled, everyone's concentrating, and especially when it comes to if it was leading benching, right? So we're familiar with that concept that one person would lead the benching and one person would make a bracha over the wine to cover everybody else. So la'achar mazon echad mevarich lechulam. And then the Mishnah goes on to say, V'hu omer al hamugmar, and that same person would make the bracha over the incense that's brought. Even though the incense is not brought until after the meal, so you'd be making a borei minei besamim, let's call it. You'd be making a bracha on smelling the incense. So even though they don't bring it until after the meal is completed, what the Mishnah is trying to explain to us is that this almost ritual of bringing incense after the meal is given, the honor of saying the bracha over that is given to the person who's had the honor of making the last bracha on the wine on behalf of everybody else. So their meals look vastly different to how our meals look, but the concepts of affording honor to people at different stages that does carry over into our meals nowadays. Okie dokie, Mishnah Zayin, where we are digressing from the hierarchy of regular brachot, and we are talking about a concept known as ikar and tafel. Ikar is the primary main thing that you're wanting to eat, and tafel are the subsidiary other things that you're eating. But we'll see how that gets explained. So to understand this a bit more, 1 second. Okay, so we're also talking about over here. We've talked about a hierarchy of brachot. Well, we haven't talked about a hierarchy of brachot, but there is a hierarchy of brachot, right? Which goes, hamotzi, mezonot, borei pri ha'etz, borei pri ha'adama, shehakol. Okay, so that's the hierarchy of brachot, and the question that we need to keep in the back of our minds is, okay, what if the main thing that I'm eating has a lower tier bracha than the other thing that is going along with it, right? So typically the types of examples that get talked about are things like herring on crackers, or egg mayonnaise on cracker, things like that. And the question is, what's the main thing that you're trying to eat? So heviu lefanav maliach batchila. So if they bring a salty food at the beginning of the meal, upat imo, and they're bringing bread with it. So according to the first position in the Mishnah, mavarich ala maliach upota esapas. Well, the main thing that you want to eat is this salty fish, is this piece of schmaltz herring, let's say. And the only reason you're eating the bread is because it helps you to digest or to swallow the fish. But if you could eat the fish on its own, then you would have done. So according to the first position in the Mishnah, mavarich ala maliach upota esapas. You make the bracha on the salty food, and it covers the fact that you're eating bread at the same time. And the Mishnah says, Shapas tfeilala, because the pas is just, translates it there as ancillary. That's the word that you don't use every day. Shapas, the bread is the sidekick to the main food that you're trying to eat. Now, this is not necessarily something that we follow to halach lamaisa, to practical applications. We would make a bracha on bread, but the rule that the Mishnah presents to us is zeh haklal kol shehu ikar ve'imot tefela. Anything that you're eating, you want to eat the main thing, but you've got a sidekick that's going along with it. Mavarich ala ikar upotei tefela. You would make the bracha on the main thing, and it would cover all of the sidekicks. So let's think about some examples. Let's say you've got a bowl of porridge which you pour some syrup into. So the main thing that you want to eat is the porridge. The fact that you have poured syrup in, which requires another bracha, that's just the sidekick. It's there to kind of help the taste a little bit, but in the main, you want to be eating the porridge. So that will get the bracha, and it will cover the syrup that you put in it. In the same way, bowl of Cheerios or a bowl of Rice Krispies or a bowl of Shreddies, whatever it is. So it's got milk in there, and we don't make two separate brachot. We make a bracha on the cereal, and it covers the milk that's inside. It would even cover, let's say, some people like things, Special K with bits of chopped up banana in or something like that. Anyone like that? Definitely not. Okay, well, some people do. I don't. But let's say you've got a bowl of Special K and chopped up pieces of banana in it. So you would still make the bracha on mezonah, on the Special K, and it would cover the bananas. All right. We go on to the final Mishnah of Perek Vav, of the 6th Perek. What are we talking about over here? So in Parshas Ekev, in the book of Devarim, we've got the Pesukim that deal with the order of fruits from Eretz Yisrael, and we also have the mitzvah of Birkat Hamazon. Benching is a biblical mitzvah. It is rooted in the source, Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta. You shall eat, you shall be satiated, and you shall make a bracha. Right? So that is the source for benching. It is a biblical obligation on us to bench after we have finished eating. So the Mishnah goes as follows. Ochal te'enim anavim v'rimonim. If a person eats te'enim, which are figs, anavim, which are grapes, rimonim, which are pomegranates, mevarich acharein shalosh brachos divrei Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel says if you eat these things, these very important fruits, then v'achalta v'savato v'rachta would apply because they're so close together in the Torah. So if you eat these fruits, you would actually bench, according to Rabban Gamliel. You would bench if you ate those fruits. Chachamim omrim bracha achas me'ein shalosh. You make a bracha which parallels Birkas Hamazon, but you don't make Birkas Hamazon. You don't bench, because benching only applies to bread. But there is a kind of parallel bracha that we say, which is called the bracha me'ein shalosh. And this is, we might be familiar with this. We would make ala michya va'ala kalkala if we were eating grain products. We would make ala eitz v'al pri ha'eitz if we were eating fruits. And we would make ala gefen v'al pri ha'gefen if we were drinking wine. So the sages say that if you were eating fruit, you would say this bracha me'ein shalosh. Rabbi Akiva Omer, afilu achal shelek v'hu mezono. Even if you have eaten cooked vegetables, but it was satiating to you, right? So even if you've only had boiled vegetables, which wouldn't even necessarily require a bracha me'ein shalosh, it might only require borei nefashot. But if it was satiating and it's filled you up, then according to Rabbi Akiva, you would bench because vesavata, you have reached a point of satiation. According to Rabbi Tarfon, we're not there yet. If you drink water for your thirst, then you make the bracha of everything is brought about, everything exists through his words. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, borei nefashos rabos. Rabbi Tarfon says the bracha for drinking water, before you drink water, is the bracha of borei nefashos. What's the bracha of borei nefashos? Borei nefashos rabos v'chesronan. You have created people with abundance and things which they are lacking. Rabos v'chesronan. Al kol ma shebarasa lahachayos b'hem nefesh kol chai. On all of that you have created, al kol ma shebarasa nefesh kol chai, on all living things. Baruch chei ha'olamim. Blessed is the living and everlasting God. So that bracha, which we now, as our practical way of living, is the after bracha for water, according to Rabbi Tarfon, is you would say that as your bracha rishona, your opening bracha to be drinking water. So we don't hold like that. the way that we hold halacha l'maisa is that we make a shahakol at the beginning and we make a borei nefashos at the end. But all of these things, they were up for discussion at the time of the Mishnah, and so it's fascinating to see. Mazel tov on completing 6 whole prakim of Masechet Berachot, and I look forward to the next time we have the opportunity to meet, when we will continue with chapter 7. Have a wonderful and meaningful night and Chag.